Definitely need a haircut. Hello, people. How's it going? Yes, it is President's Day, so I thought I would do just something fun and unproblematic, maybe, for it. So I just the top five of my favorite, more or less, presidents that men who became presidents, whether they were good at it or not is debatable. But the top five men who got to the presidency books that I like. Actually, more the person than the presidency, but you get the idea. But anyway, my hero, and I have all three books of the trilogy. I like Teddy Roosevelt. He is probably one of my biggest political role models, let alone all kinds of other role models of just doing stuff, of going out there and doing stuff, and not living a rugged life, just getting out there and doing stuff. Not sitting around and doing nothing with your life. Teddy did a lot of things. He was vice president. He was assistant secretary of the Navy. He was president, of course. He was a writer. He was a rancher. He was a governor. He was a lot of things. He explored the Amazon, which is probably what killed him when he got back, because his health was destroyed. The Amazon almost killed him. It did kill him when he got back. But this series of books is very good. I mean, Teddy Roosevelt is just, I can't, does border on hero worship. I know it does. But to me, Teddy represented what you should do with your life. Not just show up and be happy with it. Do something. Achieve something. I mean, that's his quote about the critics and all that. But I do. I have read McCullough's book on Roosevelt. I have Brand's book on Roosevelt over there. But this is my favorite book on Roosevelt. I have probably read this book about 10 times in the last 40 odd years. I mean, I read it when it first came out. But I do like Teddy. I mean, as a president, he was okay. He was better than most. He was better than most presidents. He did stuff. I mean, he wasn't perfect. No president is. But as a person, he was fascinating. I mean, he was interested in everything, including natural history. I should have brought that book over, where he talks about his natural history interests and how he just conservation interests. That's what I should say. He was fascinating. I mean, he would send a lot of these things he would hunt and shoot to the museum, American Museum of Natural History. His father helped build, finance the Natural History Museum in New York. I mean, he was there. But anyway, excellent book. The Brand book is good too. Do I have another one? I think I do. I don't remember where the other one is. Oh, the one's about his Amazon trip down the Amazon. Yeah, the River of Doubt. That's the book. It's Candace Mallard. It's a brother. Anyway, this book is good. It is excellent. You read all three books. It is great details, great everything. I mean, he is Teddy Roosevelt. I love Teddy Roosevelt. I know I have issues. Reorganize here. Okay. One of the founding fathers that I like is James Madison. This is a good book. Very good book. I mean, he was the president of the United States during the War of 1812. He helped draft the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. He's the one who put them there. I mean, he was an amazing politician. He really was. I mean, he just was. He was just a consummate politician. He just knew what he was doing. I mean, it's like, James Madison was a true genius of the early republic. While still in his 30s, he was an intellectual driving force behind the Constitution. As Secretary of State, he managed to purchase Louisiana Purchase, doubling the size of the United States. As president, Madison led the country in its first war under the Constitution, the War of 1812. He was fascinating. He just was. I can't explain some of these men, and he was a pretty good president. He was maybe a little above average president, but this book is pretty good. It details his life pretty well. I've always liked Madison. I always said, whenever I do my top three, him and John Adams are always competing for the third drop. So I do like Madison. I always have. And by the way, Adams is here, by the way. I will just bypass Quincy Adams for a moment. This book is excellent. I mean, this book is very detailed of John Adams and his somewhat prickly nature and his defense of the Boston Massacre soldiers who were innocent, they were provoked. I mean, it does detail his life, his politics, his presidency, his friendships with Thomas Jefferson and other people, and his relationship with his wife. And it is a very well written book. And this book is well written. It shows his prickly nature, his good side, his bad side. He was a man of just prickly. Prickly is the only word I can think of. But he wasn't perfect because he was the second president of the United States. He lasted one term, lost to Jefferson. But this is a good book. It is an excellent book. You got him and Thomas Jefferson died on the same day, July 4th, 1826. But excellent book, very much worth reading. I think I have one other book of John Adams, but John Adams is not high on my list. These are only the top 5. The next ones would have been George Washington and Lincoln, but I might do that later. But anyway, then there's his son. His son is actually more interesting than his dad is. I find him almost more interesting than John Adams. There's just something about this. I love this book, by the way. I mean, I think this guy still lives in St. Paul, so he probably might be still here. But this book, you get this book, it is excellent to read, an excellent book to read. I mean, let's see. Nagel probes deeply into the psyche of this cantankerous, and he was, misanthropic, erudite, hardworking son of a former president whose remarkable career spanned many offices. Minister to Holland, Russia, and England, and his dad was the Minister of France. U.S. Senator, Secretary of State, President of the United States, 1825 to 1829. He was terrible as president. It's the one thing he was not good at, like his dad. The one thing those two had in common. As presidents, they just didn't work. And finally, U.S. Representative, the only ex-president to serve in the House of Representatives. I mean, if you've seen the movie Amistad, Anthony Hopkins plays him perfectly. You mean he looks like John Quincy Adams? That's John Quincy Adams, the character that Anthony Hopkins plays. He is fascinating. I've read this book a few times too. This book is very good. It really details his life, his whole life. It details his career, his relationship with his dad, his relationship with other politicians, his relationship with his mom, his relationship with the country, his triumphs and failures. He was not a good president. Other than that, he was good. He was good at a lot of things. He just wasn't cut out to be president like his dad. But yes, this book is definitely a good read. And of course, now we come to number 2 on my list of favorite, either favorite men who were president or at least my top 3 heroes of my life. Grant. This book is very good. I have been told, I haven't read it. I've not read this book, but I have heard nothing but good things about this book. I'm just when I have skimmed through it, when I've read I like, but to thoroughly read it I haven't done. But I like the H.W. Brands. He does a very good job with his subjects. He's a very good writer, so I suspect this is very good. He wrote one on Franklin. He wrote one on, Roosevelt. He wrote one on Andrew Jackson. And I think I have one more book of his. It's way over there. Anyway, this book is very thorough. It's thorough because I've skimmed through it. And when I've skimmed, he's very thorough about his early life, his life overall, his early life. Him going to West Point, him wanting to get out of West Point, his career in the Mexican-American War, which he did not approve of. He did not like it. Read his memoirs. He didn't approve of it, but he did what he was told. Fought in the Mexican War. His ups and downs, his failures as a businessman outside of being in the military. It talks about his ups and downs in the beginning of the war and his slow rise to command all Union forces during the Civil War. Some of the, if you want to talk about a good book, it talks about him and Sherman and him in the Civil War. This book actually might be a little more detailed, a little more interesting, because this book is basically just about the Civil War. It does talk about the early days up to the Civil War. It stops when the Civil War ends. So, but as president, he wasn't that bad. He may have put people in places that they really didn't belong, but he as a president he was elected twice, which really didn't seem like a lot of people get elected twice. But I like Grant. I like people who rise above their defeats and their failures, and Grant did that. He just kept going. He lived his life like he fought the Civil War. He just kept going forward. He didn't want to go backwards. He just kept fighting and kept going and kept going. And yeah, he died of, I believe it was throat cancer, if I remember correctly. Him and Mark Twain were good friends. I like Grant. I know it's the cover figure to front, but I've always liked that picture of Grant. There's Meade and Sherman. Him and Sherman were great friends. They didn't always agree, but they were good friends. I like this book. Now, as I said, I haven't read all of it. I've just been skimming through it, and one of the little pieces I've been reading, I like. And when I say I'm skimming, it means I probably read 10 pages here and there. So it's not like I haven't read it. I'm just trying to get through that book on Sherman and Grant first. Then I'm going to read this one. But I suspect, because I like this writer, because I like this author, and I like the way he writes, I'm going to like his book. I like this book on Franklin. So if it's anything like that book, this is going to be good. But Grant was, I like Grant. I like the fact that he was almost the everyman soldier. In a lot of ways, he was like Omar Bradley in the World War II. He was just a soldier, a general soldier. He was just like almost like you did not know that he was a general unless he wore his stripes. He just wasn't. But Grant was very unassuming. It details his disagreements with Lincoln and Stanton and Halleck. Oh, Halleck drives me crazy. Halleck drives me crazy. Every book I've ever read on Halleck is like you want to just make him go away. You're more of a problem than you're worth. And he was. He got more away of Grant. Yeah. But anyway, these are the top 5 books I would recommend for a President's Day read. I would recommend them even if I haven't read the whole thing yet, because I know the author, which is why I'm recommending it. I know the author because I've read his books, and he writes very well. I don't like a lot of these presidents like him and Grant. Him and his dad were not good presidents. Madison was a good president. Roosevelt was a above average president, pretty good president, but above average. Grant was above average president. He's criticized because of the Teapot Dome scandal, which he had nothing to do with. He should have been able to figure it out, but he didn't. He wasn't a politician. Sherman warned him, don't go into politics. You're not going to like it. And Sherman was right. But anyway, those are my top 5 books on President's Day that I would recommend reading for President's Day, because those are probably my top 5 men who were president that I like to read about. So, yes, it is President's Day, where in this country we pretend that we care. Well, too many of us pretend that we care about the presidents, when it's just not true. We don't teach American history in this country anymore. We teach a lot of things, but we don't teach actual history anymore. Anyway, well, behave yourselves, people, because I'm not going to. Like, share, comment, subscribe. That would be appreciated. Hopefully this isn't too bad. Hopefully it wasn't too confusing. Later.